go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. My name is Gabby Patterson. I'm the Climate Justice Coordinator with NC Warren. I want to welcome you all to this NC Warren hosted webinar, Rights of Nature and Indigenous Climate Advocacy. NC Warren is a 37-year-old organization that has a long history of advocating for environmental and climate justice in North Carolina. Over the years, we have partnered with a variety of other groups who do amazing advocacy and mutual aid work in our state, one of those being Seven Directions of Service. Seven Directions of Service is an Indigenous-led organization rooted in environmental justice and grassroots power, operating on the ancestral homelands of the Occaneechi Saponi in rural North Carolina. This group is an environmental leader of our state whose accomplishments include helping stop the progress of the MVP Southgate frac gas pipeline. And they also focus on fostering Indigenous leadership and youth empowerment, cultural and land reclamation, and advancing rights of nature, which is a legal approach to protecting our ecosystems that we're going to learn a little bit more about today. We are incredibly grateful to be joined tonight by the amazing Dr. Crystal Cavalier-Keck, a co-founder of Seven Directions of Service and a citizen of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation. Dr. Cavalier will lead the conversation on this topic, and then we'll answer any questions at the end. With all that being said, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Dr. Cavalier. Welcome, and we're so excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much. So I am going to put on my slide share. So I'm going to replace it with, hold on one second. Let me just
No worries, take your time.
get my view right here. Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. I'm going to ask, can you see it again?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. I got to get my notes up here so I can read to you guys what I wrote down. So, Meku, everybody. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much to NC Warren and for Gabby for inviting me here. So sorry they had to postpone it from yesterday till today, but we were flying in the air, and my gosh, it was such a long flight. It was about 9 hours from Atlanta to Sao Paulo. And then it was about 3.5 hours from Sao Paulo this morning to Belém. So it's pretty crazy. We got here about noon. Um, so again, my name is Dr. Crystal Cavalier-Keck, and I am a citizen of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation, and I serve as the co-founder and executive director of Seven Directions of Service. And tonight I want to talk a little bit about what climate advocacy looks like through the Indigenous lens and how we can reconnect legal, social, and ecological systems to the living earth herself. So for centuries, environmental movements have often focused on regulation or emissions, but Indigenous perspectives remind us that climate work is about relationships with the water, the land, and the air, and with one another. And the rights of nature framework helps us legally and spiritually realign with those relationships. It asks us, what if we recognized that nature is not property, but a living being with inherent rights? And that's the shift that we'll explore tonight, from exploitation to kinship, from ownership to stewardship. And so I'm just real honored to be here. So before we begin, I kind of want to ground us with gratitude. I'm speaking to you from the traditional homelands of the Mary, home of the Tupanambi and Paca'as people from before the Portuguese colonized the city in 1616. And the city of Belém is located near the Amazon River, and more specifically on the Para River, which is part of the larger Amazon River system, which we flew over and it was pretty cool. The city is situated near the mouth of the Guama River, and I apologize if I'm not saying this the right way, but on the Guajara Bay, which connects to the Para River. Normally, I will be coming to you from the Occaneechi, Saponi, Eno, and Shakori people's homelands. which these lands have held stories, our stories, our medicines, and our ancestors for thousands of years. So our rivers are like the ones here that I'm on now, like the Eno and the Ha are sacred relatives. And our responsibility is to ensure that their voices are heard. So I ask you to take a quiet moment to recognize the indigenous nations of your own region. Maybe you can put them in the chat. That would be great. But consider whose homelands you are on tonight and how might you be in relationship with them. That's one question for you through respect, learning, and solidarity. And I always try to say land acknowledgements are not a box to check. They are a call to action, an invitation to restore relationship. Just a little bit about Seven Directions, who we are. We were founded to restore balance between people, place, and purpose. We are an Indigenous-led organization grounded in ceremony, education, and direct action. Our work spans four main areas: rights of nature, advancing legal recognition of ecosystems as living entities, um, youth and cultural revitalization. So, cultivating Indigenous and allied youth to become stewards and storytellers, and restoring ceremonies, languages, and ancestral governance, as well as fighting the pipelines, fossil fuel, and extraction. And then healing and justice, addressing intergenerational trauma through community-based wellness. And we all know what extractive industries are. So, like mining, so lithium, uranium mining, um, coal, any type of fossil fuel extraction from the earth, coal, natural gas, and oil. Um, the name Seven Directions comes from the teaching that we are guided by not only the four cardinal directions, but also by the sky, the earth below us, and the center, which is the heart. And then we have it in here to our heart. It reminds us that balance is multidimensional. And every campaign that we lead, whether it's protecting sacred sites, fighting pipelines, or training the next generation, it is rooted in that sacred balance. And that is the one that I'm hoping to restore and help rekindle with my Indigenous nations in North Carolina. So, what exactly is the rights of nature framework? Under Western law, nature has been defined as property. Corporations and governments make decisions about land and water as if they are objects to be owned. The rights of nature movement reverses that thinking and it asserts that nature, rivers, forests, wetlands, mountains, everything possesses intrinsic rights to exist, to thrive, to regenerate, and to evolve. And instead of giving humans permission to exploit this framework gives nature legal standing, the ability to be represented in court to defend herself. That is one of the reasons why we're here in Belize now. Is we had a tribunal in June of 2024, and in September, just a couple of months ago, our judges assembly came together to announce their finding that the MVP violated the rights of nature. And we are here now to bring this to the international tribunal level to share this with the world and with the United Nations to let them know that the Mountain Valley Pipeline, Southgate, and the main line has violated, the rights of nature. This rights of nature idea, it is not a new idea. Indigenous peoples around the world have lived by this principle since time immemorial. And in our creation stories, humans are the youngest siblings in the circle of life, and people really forget that. We are the learners and not the rulers. The rights of nature aligns modern law with ancient law and natural law, the law of reciprocity and respect. And I will say that we have a new course on the rights of nature framework. You can either find it on our website under, I think, engage with us, or you can go to seven directions of service .teachable.com. And it is a 6-week a 6-week course that talks about the rights of nature. It gives you examples. It gives you an actual toolkit, and it actually asks you to create a capstone project about if you wanted to create some type of rights of nature framework in your community. So when I talk about the Indigenous worldview, I often start with language. I'm relearning my language, Yesa Sahin, or Tutelo, but in many of our languages, there is no word for environment because we are not separate from it. The trees, the waters, the winds, they are extensions of our family. Now, when colonization happened, my community came up with words to try to help bridge that divide, the Occaneechi people. But we live by 3 relational principles. Number one, reciprocity, giving back as much as we take. The next one is responsibility, caring for what sustains us. And the final relational principle is respect, acknowledging that all life has is spirit. And when we break these relationships, we see an imbalance. We see climate disruption now, species lost, and social inequity. But when we restore these relationships through ceremony, law, and community, healing begins. And I always want to emphasize this with everybody is indigenous to somewhere, wherever your ancestors came from before, conquerings and colonization, your people lived in harmony with the earth. And, just like this, we're trying to bring back living in that harmony. And I know it's really difficult in this modern world, but this is why rights of nature isn't only a legal reform, it's more of a spiritual restoration. So, how does this work in practice? The rights of nature can be enacted at multiple levels, from local ordinances to international treaties. Now, I know in the state of North Carolina, you can't make an ordinance in a town or a city or even a county because it cannot supersede the state, because the state can then sue you for making that ordinance. So, sue the town, whoever created that ordinance. So, that is why in North Carolina, we started at the state level creating the rights of nature legislation at the General Assembly. But I want to share a few examples. The Wanganui River in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in 2017, the Maori people succeeded in having the Wanganui River recognized as a legal person. 2 guardians now represent the river, one from the Crown and one from the Iwi, which is the tribe of Maori people. The Lake Erie Bill of Rights in Ohio, citizens passed a law granting Lake Erie rights to exist and flourish. Although it was challenged in court, it shifted the public narrative about who holds responsibility. And in September, Jason and we were very excited to be part of a conference that was held in Cleveland, right where the Lake Erie Bill of Rights happened. And we actually met the community leaders who were leading that fight. And then finally, Ecuador's constitution. Since 2008, Ecuador recognized the rights of Mother Earth, or Pachamama, within its national constitution. These cases show us that the rights of nature is both a legal and moral evolution, one that holds corporations accountable and empowers community to speak for the voiceless. So here in North Carolina, we've been advancing this movement through the rights of the Haw River and the rights of the Dan Rivers. And then this year, Representative Pricey Harrison, she combined both of those bills together. And these legislation, I have co-authored and I continue to champion these bills. So I'm going to need everybody on this call to hold town halls, or, we're calling them home parties, to talk about the rights of nature, because we want to be able to reach so many people. And so when we have these workshops or these Zoom calls or Zoom meetings, we are empowering you to learn and to go out and spread this message to other people. Because in February of 2027, we are going to hold a lobby day at the General Assembly. And so we're going to have a sea of blue shirts, and we're going to be there lobbying our General Assembly representatives to pass the Rights of Nature general legislation for the Haw and Dan rivers. But why these rivers? Because these rivers, especially the Haw River and the Dan River, they are our lifelines. They're very sacred rivers to my tribe. They're sources of drinking water. They have huge biodiversity and very much cultural heritage for generations of indigenous peoples and even settlers alike. The proposed law creates a framework where local communities can act as guardians, ensuring the river's health and integrity would be successful and sustainable. It would also shift liability away from the state's lenient permitting systems like DEQ and towards those corporations or people who cause harm. This is a radical act of love, not in defiance of law, but in deepening it. And it says, we owe the same respect to the river that we would owe to a child, both because they are life-bearing relatives. So when we talk about climate justice, we can't really separate it from Indigenous leadership. Around the world, Indigenous people represent less than 5% of the population, but protect over 80% of the remaining biodiversity. When we do this without billion-dollar budgets or lobbyists, we do it through relationship, responsibility, and ceremony. Yet, despite this, Indigenous communities are among the most impacted by climate change. From sea level rise in Alaska and the Pacific Islands to water contamination in the Southeast, right here at home in North Carolina. Recognizing Indigenous leadership means more than inviting us to the table. It means co-governance, shared decision-making, and legal recognition of our sovereignty. So the state tribes in North Carolina, the 7 state tribes, the Coharie, the Wakamasuan, the Occaneechi Saponi, the Halawa Saponi, the Saponi tribe, the Meherrin, and the Lumbee, work with these nations to talk about what it means to bring their leadership to these tables to make this decision making. The Rights of Nature movement offers one way to embed that leadership in law and in practice. It unites ecological science, community organizing, and spiritual law. And Dr. Ryan Emanuel is a great person to reach out to as well. He wrote this wonderful book. And he is a professor at Duke University, and he really understands that river, the river, the Coharie River is tied to those people, to the Coharie people. And when that river is damaged or polluted, then the people really suffer. And he really understands that, how the river is tied to the people, just like the sturgeon was very plentiful at one time in our community. The sturgeon actually came from the Atlantic Ocean up to the Haw River, and they would spawn and then they would go back out to the ocean. But because of the dams that are in the way now, our people are really suffering. So we're really working on the rights of the sturgeon as well. My daughter Coda is working on that legislation. So change starts in the community, whether you attend a town hall, write your representative, or simply speak the truth about your watershed. You are part of this movement to honor and defend life. You might be wondering, what can I do from where I live? There are powerful ways to take part in this movement. Join or form a local rights of nature initiative. Advocate for Indigenous consultation in land use decisions and permitting. For example, the Mitcham site in Chatham County. Educate your communities about the legal and moral shift we're working toward. And then here in North Carolina, partnerships between Indigenous leaders, environmental justice organizations, and everyday citizens are proving that change is possible. organizing from the ground up, that's where transformation begins, is how we move from extractive economies to regenerative futures. So each of us has a role in the story of renewal. I invite you to stand with us in affirming that Mother Earth has rights, and so do future generations. As we come to a close of this portion of my presentation, I want to leave you with a teaching that we share often here at Seven Directions of Service. When we protect the sacred, we protect the future. And Jason, you want to say hey?
Alito, Alito, relatives, Chima Chukma.
Every action you take, whether it's planting seeds, speaking out against injustice, or writing legislation, is part of a sacred continuum of care. And I invite each of you to learn more about our work at sevendirectionsofservice.com and to connect with NC Warren and to see how your community can embrace the rights of nature. The earth is speaking through floods, fires, droughts, and crazy storms out in the ocean coming mainland. Our responsibility is to listen, respond, and act with love and courage. So let's restore balance, not for us alone, but for all of our relations. And so again, I just want to thank you for listening and being part of this dialogue. And I guess we're going to open the floor, right, Gabby, for reflections or questions. But I do have one thing.
Yes.
So I want people to reflect on this. What would it look like in your community if nature were treated as a relative and not as a resource? So yeah, that's my question.
Mhm. Yeah, people can put in the chat their thoughts, or I believe there's also an option for me to take you off of mute if you're interested in sharing. But thank you so much, Dr. Cavalier. That was really
Yeah.
powerful. And I really appreciated at the very end what you said, the language you used about the earth is speaking to us through floods and through storms, because it absolutely is. Mother Earth is not happy with the course that we're currently on, and it's up to us to really listen in and take charge. So, yeah, I just really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and share your thoughts.